Oh, what is this? Is it?
One for you.
Do these have marijuana?
No, no, nothing.
Yeah, I gotta get on a flight here.
Right now, this is just like a Brazilian candy, like my daughter's birthday.
Does it have drugs? Oh man.
Wow.
Is that fudge?
It's called brigadeiro, kind of. I think I'll say the whole thing.
Can you say that? Can you say what you just said?
I can't say that.
No.
Like milk chocolate.
Yeah, it tastes like fudge. Yeah. Tiago loves fudge. He's packing it. Put this on the internet.
So I'm back from New York, a couple weeks there, quite a few weeks there, and a lot of great experiences, met a lot of great people. The next two podcasts are going to be specifically about my time spent at Drive 495 in Lower Manhattan. I had a great conversation with Don Saladino, who is the owner, founder, and kind of the force behind Drive 495. But first I want to talk about the internship and education program they have there. It's something that, you know, I know a lot of people run internship programs. You know, sometimes these things can be a little ego driven and like, we're going to teach you what we know. But at Drive, I found that it was very human driven in terms of like, you know, we want you to be exposed to as much information as possible because that's the philosophy we have. You know, I was part of some sessions and had to share, you know, some of my experiences, and just the conversation that was generated from those interactions and just the ongoing hands-on work that we did and teaching and learning and sharing back and forth was pretty amazing. So this podcast is going to be with Chris Wicus, who's the director of their education program and director of training. You get the sense in listening to Chris that he's really invested, and this is a big part of what they do, not just developing people to go out into the world and work in fitness and performance, but also, you know, developing from within for Drive 495. So I think you'll get a lot from just listening to what Chris has to say about their program and even the interactions that we had while I was there. A lot of takeaways. I think a lot of people think, well, I'm going to get into the performance side and I'm going to work for a team, work for professional athletes and professional teams, and that's great. If you do that, awesome. There's a lot of positive things that can come from that, you know, but I think what people sometimes miss is you can do a lot of great things with general population or recreational athletes or youth athletes in a private setting, in a private sector setting, and these guys show how they push that education envelope and that performance envelope within a private sector setting. So it was a great time talking to Chris, and then, you know, stay tuned for my talk with Don as well, and I think you'll get a lot out of it. So back in Vancouver, beautiful day, and look forward to posting more soon. Thank you. Okay, Chris, just want to thank you for having me here. It's been probably longer than it should have been. Probably about.
It's been a long residency.
2 weeks is a long time, but 4, come on. But I've had a chance to exist within the ecosystem that you and Don have created here. And what I find really interesting is that everybody shouts really loud in here. No, I found that you guys have this great sort of collection of people that seem to get along for the most part, and that's not by accident, I would assume. So you're in charge of education, obviously directing the training, but also bringing these people together and recruiting. So when you, and I, you know, I've been involved with developing internship programs, and I'm always wondering like, well, is this person be good? Or I don't know, you know, they have a good resume or they said something good in the interview, but sometimes it doesn't work out. And so when you're putting this together here, what are the things you're looking for? And then, you know, let's start with that. When you're looking to acquire people to work with you, is there certain qualities you're looking for, or is it a lot of trial and error?
Yeah, when I came, because initially when I started working here about 4 years ago, there wasn't an internship program.
Okay.
And the thought process behind that was it would be too hard in this market to have people be able to sacrifice their time for not making money, because it costs a lot of money to live in Manhattan.
Yeah.
So we ended up putting the program together the way it is currently, with a bit of a stipend that allows for people to maybe pay their rent. And then we kind of ran with that and started reaching out to people on Facebook and social media, and Don went on some podcasts, and it's in order to get a group of people together. But I think Mike Boyle probably said it best when he wishes there was a certification that would just be like certified nice person. That's more or less what we're looking for, what I'm looking for. We have requirements that we're looking for people who have some level of experience, but I don't necessarily care your education level or which certifications you have. If you have, because what we require with the application process involves a resume, references, pretty typical stuff, but we're looking for also a YouTube video of them explaining why they think they would be a good fit, and then showing them coaching someone through some exercises, which I find to be pretty important, because before they come in, I can see how they interact with people.
Okay.
And this is definitely a people business. Personal training, more or less, it lies more on the personal end of things, as far as we concern everything with here. So I'm looking for that. I'm looking for like a little bit of experience. I usually will call people up and phone interview them or Skype interview them before coming in. And all I'm looking for is if you can hold a conversation with me, like, do you have a sense of humor? Do you seem to be personable to a level that I think would fit here? Because at this point, 2 years into this internship program and having run different internships at colleges and schools that I worked at in the past, I'm convinced that us as a staff and myself as an intern director can teach someone to be a good coach in 3 months, but it's very hard to teach someone to be a good person and have empathy and be a little bit emotionally intelligent in that time frame.
I agree wholeheartly. I'm sure you get some choice YouTube videos once in a while where you're like, come on, you guys got to see this.
Yeah, totally. But more or less, like, most of the people that end up gravitating towards us are inspired by Don, or they've heard great things about us from someone else and been pointed in our direction, because a lot of people are looking for the type of fitness community that we have here, and I think that allows for a lot of people to gravitate our way. And then once they apply and I see that they can actually hold their own when it comes to coaching people and interacting with people, I usually sit down with them, look over their resume, have a conversation about like what direction they're headed in life, like what inspires them to do what they do here. And I take notes, but the majority of the people that we brought on as interns to hire, the only note that really ever stuck out was good person.
Yeah.
That's usually what I end up writing. It's people that have some sort of altruistic intentions with what they're doing. They want to help people. They want to take all the stuff they've learned to help people, and they have this learner's mindset, which seems to be a commonality amongst us.
Yeah, and I know you'd mentioned the whole part about the cost of living here, and you provide a stipend. That's pretty cool, because I know there's a lot of places who don't provide anything and think, well, we're providing you with this great experience and we're teaching you, so you should be grateful. But we know that's very difficult.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of internship experiences, especially the ones that I went through and other coaches, that you work a lot and oftentimes you don't get paid. And it's a huge commitment of your time and your energy. For oftentimes you don't get a job out of it too. So you're putting all this time in, you're building your network and you're educating yourself, but at the end of the day, some of these internships, you're going to come in, you're going to observe, and you're going to clean the weight room. And with ours, it's a good opportunity for people to come in, they get paid, they also get the chance to coach. It's highly coaching intensive.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about this before, but pretty much the internship is a way for you to filter through people so that you could eventually hire them and make them kind of fit with what you're doing. I know a lot of people will say like, oh, I applied for this job and they wouldn't hire me because I'd have to do the internship first. Explain why that's important to you.
It becomes a vetting process, really. And a lot of in different professions and in other realms of employment, you usually have a probationary period where either your salary will go up or you get health insurance or whatever stipulations they might have. So I kind of treat it like that for this one, for this internship in particular, because we do end up pretty exclusively hiring from our internship program. And we're not the only gym that does that by any means. It's a very smart way to do it, in my opinion, because even if you come to us and you have a large amount of experience built up already, if you're willing to put that aside, sacrifice 3 months of your time for the opportunity to come work with us, that means a lot to us as a gym. Like, we want to see people who are willing to have the humility and put their egos aside to come learn, observe, reflect on what they've been doing, even if they've been in the field for a long time, and then you want to be part of something that is the community that we've built here.
Yeah, and from what I've seen working here, obviously it's fun, you guys get along, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's easy. Like, I think there's a lot of complexity about what you guys do. So, how do you get people up to speed on how to work in this environment, and where could be a lot of pressure, like you're working with somebody who's paid a lot of money or has is a famous person, how do you get them ready for that?
So there's pre-internship material to read, and most of that has to do with emotional intelligence, some to do with grit. I make sure that going into this internship experience, they have some of these personal skills. A lot of the people that I'll end up hiring have them inherently, were raised the right way or had associated themselves with people on their way up to put them, to make all of these things make sense to them already, like inside in and of themselves, like innately. But having people read things like How to Win Friends and Influence People, that's one of the main pre-internship readings. Some of Mike Boyle's stuff, just in order to make sure we lay some groundwork for that. And then throughout the rest of the internship, there's a set curriculum, which more or less deconstructs or reverse engineers the template of how we train people here. Yeah. So whatever categorically we're going to do with all of our clients, I want all of the interns coming in and people who are going to potentially be coaches for us to really own the why to why we're doing everything. And give them that sort of accountability and ownership of the reasons why we're doing this and that and this, so that they can convey that better to clients and they can understand maybe some of the gaps that they need to continue to question as they educate themselves going forwards.
When you're first starting somebody out and they might have limited training experience, what are the key things you're trying, aside from like the personal stuff and the social stuff, communication stuff? What kind of building blocks do you have in place in terms of like coaching for them to start with clients when they're getting going?
So in the first week, there's an orientation period where we go over the basic format of how everything works here. And within that, as a training director, I'm not going to sit here and tell you exactly what to do, because that's not my place. I want to have all of our coaches here be able to have this sort of agency and have the ability to use their creativity to, it keeps things from stagnating, obviously, but we learn all these things and we attend all these courses and we want to be able to put them into what we do. So you have a principles-based approach to training people that is very similar to something that you would find in like the CFSC course from Mike Boyle, a very mixed training model. You have this rough scaffolding to work around, and then within that, within those confines, I kind of just let you run with it. And what that ends up looking like is we have either groups from ClassPass, which is an app that people can be a part of, that they can try different classes at different studios. So those people who are coming in as one-offs, we have those classes being facilitated by the interns. We also have groups of ambassadors who have some sort of presence on social media that we have an exchange program for, that they're coming in under the guise that they're going to be promoting us as a gym. Those people are also taken by interns. So they get to develop this experience with all this variety of different groups, mostly semi-privates. They get to fill in for some of our private sessions too, in terms of coaching, but they're really trying to implement all of the things that they're also learning at the same time. So we kind of teach them how to do it at the front end in terms of these categories, and then over the course of the 3 months that they usually end up staying with us, they're able to tease out the reasons why, and they come to these epiphanies. So You are handed something initially, you observe how everything's going on in the gym by shadowing the different coaches. You're able to, over this time, reflect on all of these things that you're being taught, and then that final ability to experiment, utilizing all the stuff you've learned in this model that we've given you. I think it's a very valuable experience.
And it was interesting. We went to a play the other night, and one of your clients here, Billy Crudup, did an amazing performance, like almost an hour and a half of just him going through, a story, lines, whatever. I'm thinking, wow, that's amazing. I couldn't do that. But he was in here earlier, and we had talked about this, and I said, how much variability do you allow yourself to kind of navigate through a little differently every time you do the play, do the show? Because I think he does it every night, sometimes twice a day, and it was very precise, like his lines and everything. And it was interesting, he said, well, I've got to follow certain rules because it's not my production. There's a writer, screenwriter and all that. And so, but, there's some variability there. So in your case, how much freedom, how many degrees of freedom do you give your trainers to obviously work within the structure that you've provided, but have some freedom, but you don't want them straying too far and not having, the Drive brand sort of poorly represented or different from what you're doing?
Yeah. So I think that's one of the benefits of having this internship the way that it runs. If you pay attention, even the people that were here before the internship started and still train, we all seem to value the same things, and I think we take a very principles-based approach to how we train everyone. And I think if you following these guidelines and you're always trying to get to this point of best practice and doing the best possible work for our clients, the results seem to look the same in terms of what processes people try to use. Yeah. And we have a very tight-knit group. We have meetings, multiple intern meetings a week. There's a one set staff meeting every week. We're constantly talking to each other, and based around like the model that really is become based around all of the things that we value as coaches. There isn't a lot of diverging from that. Okay. And if there was, it would usually start a discussion. And I think that everyone brings something to the table when it comes to those type of discussions, but it's not something that I think we ever really ran into as a problem. Okay.
Have you had any negative, less than successful experiences where you hired somebody and it didn't work out? And what's the process if you see somebody kind of straying, maybe they don't fit in? Yeah. How much effort do you put to try to rectify that, maybe steer them in the right direction? And then at what point do you say, hey, this isn't working?
Luckily, I haven't had to deal with anything directly like that before. Okay. Most of the people that I'm hiring on the front end, I can sort of tell by now what I'm going to be dealing with. You can see based on people's education experience, what types of things that they were learning before, how they practice on the beforehand. And I also have everyone in the first few weeks write up programs for me so I know where they're coming from. Okay. And then I explain to them how that might, diverge from what we do. Okay. And by the time I've explained that and the basic reasons why we might do something, everyone seems to be more or less on board with what we're talking about. And it's an atmosphere of learning where if you feel like you have a better answer for something, I'm definitely going to listen to what you have to say. And if we as a group can collectively think that like this is probably the best way to do things, it will probably change. That will probably change in the program.
How do you guys actively market the internship program? Do you have to spend a lot of energy on that, or is it just something?
We haven't yet. It sort of ebbs and flows throughout the year, and it's been more or less a rolling admission for the 2 years that it's been running. And that's, I think, has a lot to do with the market that we're in. We're not getting these feeder systems with universities and stuff and only like semester based like you might see at other gyms, but a lot of it comes down to like how many people we need at which part of the season too. So we have a lot of people that are gone in July. Holidays are dicey. There's a big push and then everyone leaves for a month. Beginning of the year starts to pick up again, and there's a pretty consistent trend that you see in the private sector that we try to fill more intern spots accordingly. Most of the advertising and exposure, I think, has been through Facebook.
Okay.
And word of mouth, and people reaching out to Don on Instagram, or people speaking with like Pat Davidson or Bill Hartman, and they'd be like, oh, like, or Mike Ranfone, and these guys directing people our way.
Nice.
People are like, oh, well, people are interested in personal training, but they like seeing things from a very human performance-based model, which is kind of what we do here. So they want to experiment between the personal training side and also applying these performance concepts that they've learned. So we seem to be a good spot for that.
And so what do you see are some things you want to do into the future, which may be a little different? Are there any areas you want to push into? Where you're like, I think, as a group, as a gym, we want to see us maybe doing more of this, or is there anything?
I think over the next year, so last year, right at the end of the year, we had a big influx of, just based on coincidence, you being here and Pat and Ben House all of a sudden needing a place to present.
Yep.
I think this is a really great environment for that. It's just the space we have in the back and the feel of the courses that we host here. It feels very like family oriented and community oriented. So I want to try to push for doing more of that stuff next year, like bringing you back, trying to get Pat and Ben to come back, and reaching out to all these other people that might not have been able to facilitate a course somewhere else in New York City. I think our gym is a good spot for that to happen. So continuing ed-wise, I would like to push the envelope a little bit with that for next year. Yeah, also, I was thinking about what you were just asking me about what we wanted to do next year.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot of coaches come through these courses. They see what kind of atmosphere we've created here and the culture we've created in the community, and they want to be a part of that. And New York City is a very strange market because there's a lot of people independently training people. And they go to different gyms, they pay a fee, they get to take their client there, but that's like it. They're their own island.
Yeah.
They don't have this family and this group like we might have, where they can come and bounce ideas off of and have this collaborative type of education effort. So I think next year we're going to try to make a push to having, I know Pat Davidson's already sort of done this out of the gym that he works at, where he's offering these in-service type things every month. We might try to do the same thing and have more or less a mentorship meetup every month. Okay. Where everyone comes in and Don's available and Kyle, one of our physical therapists, is available, and we all talk, and maybe there's a specific topic every month, and then we bring people in and we create our own like strength and conditioning community on top of the other community that we already have in-house. I think that could be pretty beneficial and really push everyone in the city, not just our gym, forward a little bit.
Well, what's nice is everybody I've talked to in the city, and I went around and talked to everybody in the city. Yeah, I'm very thorough. Everybody knows about this place, right? It's not like an obscure place. It's very it's on a busy street, intersection.
For some reason they've heard of it, right?
Yeah, it's easy to get here. You guys have, whether individually or collectively, built a reputation. So it's definitely a good place to get people together. Like you said, physically you guys have the room, but even just virtually you guys have a presence. So, even for me coming here, it's not difficult for me to go, hey, why don't you meet me at Drive, and we can put our heads together and talk to some other people, and it's going to be a good conversation. Yeah. So I think, if we talk about continuing education, and you and I have attended some of the same events or conferences, I personally, even though I get asked to speak at some of these things, I'm not thrilled about the sort of conference format where you have, like, I have an hour to speak, and then another guy speaks, and then another guy speaks. I think there's limitations to the learning, and it's not very interactive. It's very one way. So I like, some of the things that have been happening here in terms of, hey, let's just sit down and talk. Yeah. But I do like immersing myself within a group like this and going, hey, what do you think? What do you think? And hearing different perspectives, because when it's just one-way communication in terms of, a presentation, I find it really boring. Yeah. Like, I find it boring on the delivery side, but also the receiving the information. So is that what you guys are trying to push for, is more of an interactive?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the times the big like takeaway points that you get from conferences are the stuff in between the talks. So either questions that you ask like you at the bar, or if you happen to be at breakfast one day and you meet Murphys for the first time. Because that was where you and I met.
That's right. That was
at breakfast.
That was a real chance encounter.
The Midwest Performance Summit things. That was the one that you were the keynote speaker.
Yeah.
You just sat with
I was
Pat.
really bored with myself.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that you create these collaborative environments where people are having these discussions, and that's really where it comes from. I think, especially you, for instance, are someone that is not necessarily into the same things that myself or Cody might be into, or Tiago for that matter. So you bring this fresh perspective to everything. Because what ends up happening in this industry is, I feel, that is people gravitate towards their own groups, and we all make these different tribes, and everyone wants to like be a part of that tribe. But then after a while, the message just becomes the same.
Yeah.
And you create these biases that you can't break. And it's important to see like someone comes in and has this provocative message that you have that like, hey, maybe like all the strength and conditioning stuff you're doing doesn't matter. And if you needed to run, no, this is great. This is an important thing to talk about. If you all you know is strength and conditioning, then everything seems like it needs a strength and conditioning solution. But if you have a sport that is highly predicated on running fast, and you're not doing that in your programming because you want to be in the weight room and you want to do French contrast training, then you're missing something that's crucial. And that's sort of the message that you were able to provide for not only myself, but a whole group of people that might have thought that before it was all about strength and conditioning.
Well, I think it's very easy to get, kind of. I was going to use the word manipulated. Let me not use that word. It's a negative word.
Influence.
Yeah,
I had this
influence.
conversation today with one of my clients. We don't like the word manipulation. Nobody does.
No, we want control over our lives. But yeah,
Especially in
it's
the world
very
right
easy
now.
to get drawn in to a philosophy, and then you kind of put on the blinders, and it becomes an end in itself. And so that's why, I guess there's certain people that I've learned from who are like, hey, let's just look at the common sense approach. And it was interesting, even yesterday at our event, where we're talking about sprinting and running, there's people still coming up to me and saying, yeah, the university I work with, the coach I work with, nobody wants to run even though they value speed. Which is totally insane.
Mind-blowing, right?
Yeah. So maybe somebody has to come out, from left field and say, hey, why don't we try this? And I think that's why a conventional education approach
Is this where you start shitting on conventional education?
Yeah. I'm going to homeschool my kids.
Schools for losers.
Yeah. But even, I could go on here, but even with my own kids going to school, and maybe I'm hyper aware, and probably you would be too, because you're involved in education. But you're just looking at what's happening. You're like, this is so deficient. Like, you're missing the point. And I guess if you're employed as a teacher, sometimes you don't have a global perspective. You just have, like, I got to get my marks out. I got to evaluate. I got to make it look like I'm doing something.
We have to make these sort of marks on the standardized testing. Otherwise, our school doesn't get a budget, and I don't get paid as much.
Yeah.
It's a really flawed system.
So, and it's no different than, we go visit a professional team, and they're just, everyone's siloed and just looking exactly what's right in front of them, but they don't see the insanity that's happening, in the organization. So, yeah, I think that's the interesting part about, having this responsibility to educate young people as part of your internship program and going, well, here's the information, but guess what? There's some other things we need to talk about, because if I just give you the information, it could be misconstrued or taken too literally. And do you find yourself doing that, doing a couple of reality checks here and there?
Absolutely. I pretty much tell all the interns that I want them to disagree with me as much as possible, and that I didn't get to where I was without making tons of mistakes. And there's lots of things that I do today that I'm sure that in 5 years I'll laugh at why I was doing them. But that's why we try to boil it down to principles, because these seem to be the fundamental truths that are always going to dictate what we do.
Yeah.
It's always going to, you keep asking questions. And a lot of this comes from talking with Bill Hartman and listening to him talk. Like, you just keep asking questions until you boil it down to the fundamental truth of the matter. This might be Socrates or Aristotle too. Some philosophical
One of those
thing.
guys.
I don't know. Bill Hartman and Aristotle are the same person to me. Then you figure out if what the question that you asked that got you to that truth, like, is that useful? And then you sort of roll with that. And within those confines, and as long as you are still looking for the same outcomes, like force output or the ability to move well enough to perform whatever task you're asking for, there's lots of different tools to get there. And you're trying to find the best ones that are going to get you there with the least effort. So you want to be able to get, in my mind, want to be able to get more for less.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I want to empower people that we're educating here at Drive to be able to keep asking those questions and be better than me, be better than everyone else here, so that they can take what they learn here and the principles that they learn here and go make a better tomorrow for the field.
Yeah.
And do you think we could ever get Bill Hartman into a toga? Because he's kind of into the black cape thing.
Yeah. Well, Bill and I will wear Batman costumes.
Okay.
Then maybe we'll wear Batman togas, like black togas.
Black togas.
Yeah. with
Blogas,
Batman,
yeah.
with Batman logos.
We'll get Bill a bloga.
Instead of a cape, it'll be a toga, and then have the cowl with the the ears. Yeah.
2018 coming up. What are things you want to do personally? Like, aside from just how you're going to educate people, what do you want to learn? What do you want to do differently?
The sprint. So initially wanted to learn more about the speed aspect of things. It's always been something that's interesting to me, and there's reading Charlie Francis' work has really been provocative for me. Having talked to you, been lucky enough to speak with you for these last 4 weeks, I'm in the process right now of just reaching out to all of my previous mentors and people that I haven't maybe touched base with in a while, or communicated with, and figuring out what they're excited about. And then that's been sort of directing where I want to go. A lot of times there's certain people that have taught me a lot, and I want to listen to them speak more. So the more I can be around them, the Pat Davidsons of the world and the Bill Hartmans of the world, I'll definitely head to the Performance Summit, the Midwest one, because that's been a very fruitful continuing ed course for me the last few years. So I've been able to connect.
Just in terms of meeting people, right?
Yeah, I've been able to connect with you. Like, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for us
That's
meeting
true.
you there, for sure.
Well, I'd be in the neighborhood, but I wouldn't be here.
You literally be. I mean, it's funny that I don't remember why I was reaching out to you. Did you post to Facebook that you would be in New York, and then I contacted
I don't think
you?
so.
How did that even happen then?
I don't know. Just
I think I had just
density.
Yeah, the universe told me to reach out to you. Well, you and I talk every few months, so it was a matter of that. And you were like, "Oh yeah, I'll be in New York, and I'll be at the guy that I'm training, the celebrity, will be at Mercer Hotel, which is literally 2 blocks from us."
Total coincidence.
Yeah, I was like, well, if you want to train him at our gym, and we had that set up, and you've been incredibly generous with your time and helping our clients, our coaches, just giving very selflessly to us. So we
you guys have been very helpful, just supporting and helping with that event.
And then if we can be your muse for what your next step is in your career, I'm all for that.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but
it
might involve the curved treadmill, but we'll talk more about that.
And the people running on the curved treadmills.
But yeah, definitely some unique experiences.
Yeah.
And I get to meet people like JT.
Yeah. Who's actually a supervillain. I don't know if you figured this out yet.
See? You got to get in on this here.
Oh, yes, well.
Have you ever worn a toga?
We're going to have a toga party.
Okay.
Interesting.
I seem like a sandals and toga kind of villain. Is that what?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
You seem like the villain that has a very white, fluffy cat that he pets.
He was fluffy until the accident.
Yeah.
And now he's bald.
Yeah. We dropped him into the tank with the sharks with the friggin' laser beams.
Yeah. So then I had a bald cat with a laser beam.
Yeah.
And
Laser.
I was like, well, so much for my evil empire. Let's go sell gym memberships.
There you go.
There you go.
Hashtag laser cats.
Hashtag laser cats.
Funny how that happens.
I'm going to let you guys get back to talking about
Oh,
things.
thank you.
Okay.
Laser cats is
We're
important.
keeping this in the podcast.
Yeah, that'll
for
be
sure.
in there. Yeah, a little.
It's going to do wonders for my Instagram followers.
It's
But yeah, what we'll do is we'll catch up probably in the next couple of months. Maybe I'll be here, maybe not, but we'll continue to discuss some ideas.
Yeah, I'm excited for the future of what we can do with manual treadmills, what we can do with courses to teach Gen Pop trainers what to do with the sprint mechanic stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think there's this really big disconnect between what trainers tend to like to learn and what they can actually apply to the moms that they work with.
Yeah.
Because a lot of trainers come from this performance mindset. And I don't fault them for this because a lot of what they're learning are performance-based models. So, Mike Boyle made a certain model based on how they train athletes, and then you just apply the principles that seem to fit for general population. And now we're the first through the door, it seems, with all of the sprints training and how that can apply to general population.
Yeah, and quite honestly, the event we had yesterday out at the pier, I was a little shocked to see that some of the non-athletes were looking pretty good. I'm like, whoa, and they seem to enjoy it. So, maybe there's a future there, and maybe we should be encouraging people to do that. Because, quite honestly, there's a lot of people out there making people do very egregious stuff and stressful stuff. At least this is stressful in a positive way.
Yeah, this is one of those things, I think, where you give people very simple technical cues or create environments where it just cleans it up, and then they might feel better. They might get a better result with doing less work. Less, like you're talking about, less coaching and less like all these crazy activities and things that we learn to do that we want to just throw into our programs. Maybe they just need to learn to march and skip, and that will help clean other things up.
Yeah, and like you said, going back and revisiting old stuff and old mentors, like that's what it seems like I'm doing now. I'm just kind of going back to the roots and the foundation and going, hey, how can we make this simpler? And how can we spread it out to the masses even better?
Yeah. So it's an important message that needs to get out there.
Well, thanks a lot for your help.
Thank you for everything.
Continue to work. And check out driveclubs.com. And if you're in New York, Lower Manhattan, just come visit and say hello.
driveclubs.com/internships. I think that's the internship. My email is chris.wicus@driveclubs.com. If you want to reach out to me, WICUS. I would love to talk to you, even if you just want to come by.
Yeah, I'd highly recommend it if you're in the area, or even if you just want to communicate online. It's a good start.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, man.